Breaking news that's coming in right now. Virat Kohli resigns from Test cricket captaincy after ODI and Test. Kohli now steps down from Test cricket captaincy after Test series loss in South Africa. Virat Kohli steps down from Test cricket captaincy. That's the big breaking news that's coming in right now. Kohli took to social media to make the mega announcement. He had taken over the job in 2014. He steps down from the job as India's most successful Test captain. My colleague Rahul Rawat is now joining me live right now. Rahul, an extremely surprising decision and announcement which has been made by Virat Kohli. What was the thinking? What was possibly the reason behind this decision to step down as Test cricket captain?
Well, Paulami, this news, of course, comes a day after India has lost the Test series against South Africa. But trust me, this has nothing to do with that series
Rahul, just
loss
hold
against
for a minute. Just hold there for a minute. Rajdeep Sardesai is also joining us on the phone line right now. Rajdeep, how do you look at this decision, this announcement made by Virat Kohli? He's stepping down as India's Test cricket captain.
It was inevitable. In my view, I know that Rahul was just now suggesting that it has nothing to do with the defeat in South Africa. I do believe that this South African tour was the last frontier for Virat Kohli, and not having conquered that, having lost the T20 World Cup, having given up the white ball captaincy and been deprived of the 50 and taken the 50-over captaincy taken away from him in controversial circumstances, Virat needed to win this series to reassert his authority. That hasn't happened. And look, Virat Kohli has been India captain for 7 years. And I've been going through the record of all Indian captains, barring Mansoor Ali Khan Patodi, who was captain for 9 years. No other Indian captain has been captain for a sustained period for as long as Virat has. Even Mahendra Singh Dhoni was Indian Test captain for all of 5 years only. So when you look at it from that perspective, 7 years is a long time. So I think Virat has recognized that perhaps captaincy is affecting his batting. He has recognized that he perhaps has taken the team as far as he could, and it's time to hand over the baton. I think Virat Kohli will come back, I would like to believe, now charged up to perform as a batsman and reaffirm his credentials as the world's best batsman. I think this was inevitable. Perhaps even if India had won the series, it is possible that Virat would have wanted to go on a high, having conquered that last frontier. Either way, I think there is a sense that after 7 years, captaincy has been getting to Virat, and it comes at a time when there's been another major controversy over his behavior on the second last day of this Test series, when he was seen talking to a stump mic and making several serious allegations about DRS. So I think Virat Kohli was under some kind of pressure, and he's finally decided that he would rather give it up now and focus on his batting rather than be pushed out as he was as the white ball 50-over captain.
Right. So, Rajdeep, would you say that this decision was timely in a sense?
Yes, I think so. I think, look, Virat Kohli has every right to, in my view, leave as captain on his own terms. He's done a remarkable job. If you look at his career, both as Test captain, victories in England, victories in Australia, victories in the West Indies, a remarkable record as a one-day captain. There's no doubt that he's done a fantastic job over the last 7 years of taking the team to the world #1 Test status. However, with Ravi Shastri, who has been his great mentor, also quitting or complete term as coach, it was clear that Virat's options were running out. And the manner in which he was removed as 50-over captain, I don't think Virat wanted to get into a situation where there would be questions raised about his future as Test captain, and he be eased out of that. So I think he's chosen to exit before someone else tells him that it's time to call quits. So to that extent, you're right. I think it's the right call that he's taken at the right time.
Right. Rajdeep, thank you so much for joining us with your thoughts over there on this sudden announcement which has been made by Virat Kohli on social media that he is stepping down as India's Test cricket captain. Nikhil Naz is also joining me on the phone line right now. Nikhil, how do you view this decision which has been made by Virat Kohli, taking to social media to announce that at a certain stage things come to a halt, and this is where it does for him as well as Test captain?
Well, Paulami, the first word that really comes to my mind, after watching Virat Kohli's tweet, is that it is surprising, it is shocking. I mean, those are the first two words that really come to your mind, primarily because this was unexpected. Yes, he had let go of his T20 captaincy, and after that, the Indian selectors had decided that it's best to have one white ball captain, in which case he had to let go of his ODI captaincy. And I can add, at the moment, that wasn't something that he really wanted. Once he was told, the kind of impression that we got from Virat Kohli was that he was okay once he was informed that the ODI captaincy also will go out of his hand. Test cricket was one format which really, was a format that Virat Kohli gave priority to, and that came as a welcome change in cricket of the current generation, where you've seen most cricketers give priority to the white ball format. Virat, in that sense, was very, very different. He prioritized Test cricket. That was the epitome for him, the number one format, and he played his heart out when you saw him. Not that he wasn't playing his best in white ball cricket, but you could make out that when he went into the test arena, a victory overseas or winning a test series really, really mattered to him. And he said it in as many words every time that he spoke to the media or gave interviews or came into the press conferences. With all that in mind, that's why I say it comes as a huge surprise, a huge blow for a lot of Indian fans that Virat has decided to let go of his test captaincy. Now, there were a lot of undercurrents, briefly, as I spoke about that whole debate over whether he should have been allowed to continue as the ODI captain, and then the debate that followed was what he was saying and what the BCCI was saying. Primarily what the BCCI president Saurav Ganguly was saying was very different to Virat Kohli. He came out and addressed that openly, in a sense, took on the BCCI. Were there undercurrents there? Now, the other important thing is how much of a role did this particular series play as well? Now, remember, Virat had kept talking about, this being the final frontier. This is the one country where his team hadn't won. This also was the best opportunity many considered for this Indian team to win a test series in South Africa, and they began on a fantastic note, winning that first test match. After that, having lost the two test matches, and in the fashion that they lost these two test matches, did that also take a toll? That could be another question people will ask. But if you ask me, having heard Virat yesterday after that defeat, it didn't seem like at that very moment, after he came to address the media, right after that lost the series, lost to South Africa, it didn't seem like that he was ready to give up his role as a test captain. He was, of course, dejected. He spoke about the areas that they could have done better, but the things you could gather from that particular press conference was that he was looking ahead. What are the things that he can fix? He was asked about questions going into the future. Which are the players you're going to keep? What about the non-performing players? Will you let them go? How do you see the future of test cricket? That's because primarily everyone accepted that Virat is the future of test cricket. He is the future captain for India, at least for the next few years. And Virat answered all those questions as in someone who is going to be in charge. And then suddenly, within the next 12 hours, for this statement to come does seem surprising, but I can't help but think all the undercurrents that I'm talking about,
absolutely,
when it came to his ODI captaincy going away from his hands, have certainly played a role in now Virat deciding to quit this test captaincy as well.
Okay. Nikhil, stay on with us. Rahul is also with us. Rahul, apologies for cutting you short earlier over there. But what are you learning? What were the circumstances which in fact precipitated this decision? Was it the loss in the South Africa series? Was it a sudden decision? Was it something that Virat had been possibly thinking about for a while? Rahul?
Well, Paulami, firstly, I was interrupted that time, but this series loss may not have anything to do with this decision. But what has happened in the last 4 or 5 months in Indian cricket, I'm sure the Indian cricket has been affected badly, both on the field and off the field as well. In August, Virat announced that he's stepping down as T20 captain, and then he was removed as ODI captain under some mysterious circumstances. Of course, nobody was, at least Virat wasn't aware of it. That is what he claimed. Then he comes out in the media and says that, I was just an hour and a half ago, I was informed that I'm not going to be the ODI captain. And nobody asked me not to step down as T20 captain. And this happens just before India is about to leave for South Africa. When the team reaches South Africa, they won a test match. Then suddenly what happens is the chief selector comes out in the media and says that what Virat said was absolutely wrong. In fact, all the members who were present in that particular meeting, they asked Virat not to quit as T20 captain. And once he refused to go by what they were saying, it became inevitable for them not to remove him as ODI captain. So, Virat, all these things must have left a bad taste as far as Virat Kohli is concerned. I was listening to Rajdeep earlier. He said that this was inevitable. I don't know if he saw it coming. At least I didn't see it coming. I don't know about Nikhil. If Nikhil, you already knew that, because I didn't know that Virat would step down as T20 as Test captain, because to be very honest, he is the best ever Test captain that India has had in a long time, and he has results to prove that. This South African series, of
Right.
course, it did go by by their plans, but still it has nothing. But a lot has happened. Because Virat said that, every time I go out there to play, I give my 100%. But at this particular moment, in his statement, he said, I don't think I am able to give my 100%, and that is the reason why I am stepping down.
All right, let me just sum up what's happened at the moment. The big breaking story that we're breaking on India today at the moment is that India's most successful Test captain, Virat Kohli, has decided to let go of his Test captaincy. He's, of course, said that he'll continue to serve Indian cricket for as long as he can. However, after having given all in the Test arena as the leader of the pack, he's now decided that, he will no more be Test captain. And this comes on the heels of him having let go of his T20 captaincy a few months ago. And after that, of course, we know what played out later, that the Indian ODI captaincy was also taken away from Virat Kohli. Were there any residues from that? That's exactly what we're going to discuss in the next few minutes as we keep bringing you the latest updates on this big story that we're bringing to you on India Today. With me is my colleague Rahul Rawat, also consulting editor. Rajdeep Sardesai is also with us. But before that, let me go across to former India cricketer in Madan Lal. Madan sir, first up, what is your reaction having heard Virat Kohli has decided to let go of Test captaincy? I know it comes after a heartbreaking series loss, yet we're talking about the results that he's given India in the Test arena. Does it really surprise you? Does it shock you?
Yeah, definitely. I think it surprised me. Virat Kohli has left the captaincy, but I think he still look very annoyed with the decision the selector or the board has taken it when they said you're not going to be the captain for 50 overs. That's, I think he still has in mind why they have removed me from the 50 overs. We knew that he's going to be the captain for Test cricket, and he's very successful there. But nothing to do with this series. But definitely, I think he's still very annoyed with the decision the selector or the board has taken, the 50, removing him from the 50 over captaincy.
All right, that's a very interesting point that Madlalji, who's joining us, makes, that, he clearly was enjoying his cricket. Definitely, you could see some sort of residue. As he is mentioning, he must have been annoyed, and he did express that annoyance when he addressed the press conference ahead of this series. But Madan sir, one question if I could ask you on the follow-up, as you're saying that at the moment seems like that because he was annoyed of that ODI captaincy being taken away from him, that could have played a part in him giving up on Test captaincy as well. How would you see the BCCI approach right now? If he is indeed, and the records prove that, if he is indeed your best Test captain in the history of Indian cricket, would you like the BCCI, the top brass in the BCCI, to have a word with Virat Kohli? If they could have had a word with him earlier, asking him to reconsider T20 captaincy, as they're saying now, maybe the same can be done in Test captaincy. And for all you know, it's not cricketing reasons that he's decided, as we're talking here, to give up that Test captaincy. Is primarily because reasons off the field that he's upset. Would you like the BCCI top brass then to take the initiative, maybe speak to their most successful Test captain?
No, I don't think BCCI will do that. But he will not. Because he left the captaincy because his own will. Like that. But BCCI, if BCCI interfere, then there will be more controversy. Maybe I know that he was a very successful captain, definitely. But end of the day, when you are doing well and everything going well for you, but I still have a feeling that he's very annoyed with the decision the BCCI or selector taken him, removing him from the captaincy of 50 over, because he told before, okay, I'm leaving the 20 over captaincy, but I want to be captain for 50 over and Test cricket, But that's the only reason I think he left it. And now he's going to be play as a player, but BCCI will not interfere his decision,
Okay, Madan sir, before I let you go, one final question, because I know you were, in fact, a lot of people might not know, you were the coach of the Indian team, and at that time there was Sachin Tendulkar who was the captain. I know he left his captaincy for completely different reasons. He really wanted to concentrate on his batting, and there were questions raised about the results that Sachin could not bring as a captain. But do you see any parallels, a great player letting go of captaincy, just wanting to play, be there as a player, between what transpired when you were coach, when Sachin Tendulkar used to be captain, to now when Virat Kohli is doing the same?
I think it's a two different character, like Sachin was a different and Virat Kohli is a totally different character. Virat Kohli was enjoying the captaincy, Test cricket. I've seen him, last, even they lost the series, but he was still involved with the most of the time, with the team. But Sachin was a totally different. He used to be very, very concerned about his own performance. And, he always used to catch the height, whatever he has set for himself. But there was a lack of communication when Sachin left the captaincy. Because I think Sachin formed the chairman selection committee that I'm not going to do the captain for India. But the chairman of the selection committee never conveyed the message to the other selectors. So that's what happened, When he came in, when we announced the captain, I was a selector at that time. When we announced the captaincy, that Sachin will be the captain, then after that, Sachin refused it, Said, look, I'm not going to be the captain. Then we asked Ajit, that's what Sachin is saying. He was shocked. Ajit was shocked, that why he has said that.
Right. And as most fans of Indian cricket are shocked so many years when Virat Kohli has now decided to let go of that Test captaincy. Madan Lal, thanks so much for joining us, sharing your thoughts here on India today. But I'm still joined by my colleagues in Rajdeep, Sardesai and Rahul Rawat. Rajdeep, I'll come to you, and I'd like to pick your brains about what Madan Lal just mentioned. And I spoke to him about this fact that, and as he was saying, that it seems like that he was upset that ODI captaincy was taken away from him because they wanted one white ball captain. The follow-up question that I had for Madan Lal, which you may have heard, it was that can the BCCI now go back to him, try and convince him to their most successful Test captain to continue, and maybe a conversation there, a dialogue there might just help Virat Kohli change his mind. But to which Madan Lal replied saying, no, I don't think the BCCI is going to do that. Is it still a case of all these years that we've been covering the BCCI that that's not an option? The board always remains above the player no matter how big he becomes?
Well, why should that be an option? It's a strange question in that sense to ask, because the fact is Virat Kohli on his own volition has decided that he's had enough as India captain. It's 7 years. I've been going through the history of Indian captaincy. Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi, who became captain in strange circumstances when Nari contractor was hit on his head at the age of 21, was India's captain from 62 to 1970 before Ajit Wadekar replaced him. That's 8 years. The only other instance of someone having been as captain as long as Virat has, which is 7, is Mohammad Azharuddin, who was captain from 1991-92 right up to 1998. So you've had two captains who've been around for about 7 years, and in Azhar's case there was a brief break as well when Tendulkar had taken over. 7 years is a long time. Even the great Mahendra Singh Dhoni was captain for really of the Test team for 5 years. If you look at Virat's performance, it's quite remarkable. India has about a 60% success rate in Test cricket under Virat. But I think captaincy, particularly in a country like India, does take a toll on you. And I get a sense that after the manner in which he was removed as one-day captain, Virat didn't want to go through the same experience or the possible similar experience in being removed as the Test captain. So I think he's decided that this is perhaps the right time. He's taken the team as far as he can. And maybe this is the right time to focus on his batting. The one thing that has suffered in the case of Virat Kohli in the last 2 years now is his batting. And I think somewhere a great player recognizes when the pressure is actually getting to it. I think the greatness of Virat up to now, Nikhil, was the fact that he was able to handle the pressure of being India captain and the #1 player, something which even Sachin Tendulkar could not do. Virat was able to do that longer than any other Indian captain ever has, which is why one must doff one's hat to him. But I think this is the right time, because there are clear signs in recent time that his batting has suffered. And possibly in South Africa, we got a sense that the pressure was actually getting to him, particularly on that second last day, where the entire controversy over taking on the South Africans through a stump mic and questioning DRS. So perhaps, given all that has happened in the last few months, Virat has recognized that maybe this is the time to just focus on his batting. He's given Indian cricket as much as he could have in the last 7 years. It would have been great if he could have gone out on a real high by winning this series, but then you don't get every wish. The final frontier in that sense, like with Steve Waugh and Australia coming to India, that will remain the one the one element missing in Virat's CV.
Right. Before I go to Rahul, Rajdeep, just a follow-up on that. I mean, you did give a lot of examples of how long captains have lasted. But should we look back at those past incidents, and should there be a threshold? Let's say if it's 6 years or 7 years, why must there be a threshold when you know that? And as you just mentioned, that he has been the most successful Test captain. His personal form may have dipped, and by a lot of admission that we're getting to hear from folks, that it may not be just because of his batting form, but probably of things that transpired off the field, that he decided to step out as captain. If I have the interest of Indian cricket, let's speak like an Indian fan, wouldn't I want Virat to continue as the Test captain?
If you ask me individually, Nikhil, I would say no. I think Virat has now actually reached a stage where his continuing is not necessarily to the benefit of Indian cricket. I know that's a big statement to make, but that's the sense I got after all that one has heard and seen in the last 6 months. There have been reports of dressing room discontent during the England tour. There have been reports of some of the senior players feeling miffed in terms of man management. It is true that Virat's mentor, Ravi Shastri, is no longer there in a way as coach. Not mentor as much as his confidant, no longer there as coach of the Indian team. There's a sense that, Virat has imposed his personality on the team, but now there is a new generation of cricketers who perhaps need to be led in a very different way and maybe, allowed to sort of express themselves very differently. I think, Nikhil, this is the start of an era. The Virat Kohli era is now going to lead to an entirely different era. Lots of changes, even in personnel. I expect a couple of new batsmen now to come into the middle order. You expect possibly some changes in the manner in which the team strategizes. The bowling is, of course, our big strength. That's not going to change. But, to say that a captain should remain for as long as he can, I don't know. You give me an example of world captains who have lasted for more than 7-8 years at the top. You can count them on the fingers of one hand. And I think to that extent, the very fact that Virat was able to do T20, white ball and Test captaincy for such a long period of time and still maintain his #1 ranking as a batsman for so long is quite remarkable. But in the last 2 years, there has been a perceptible decline in form. And then questions have to be asked. This is the elephant in the room, that we don't ask these questions. Yes, you raised the point rightly, Nikhil, about BCCI and its role. They too need to be transparent. What is the kind of dialogue they've had with Virat, if any? I get a sense that there has been a communication breakdown. So I think there are lots of troubling questions, Nikhil, and maybe Virat has decided to preempt those questions by stepping down at this stage.
Okay, Rajdeep, you've given me a lot of fodder to chew on, and I'm going to go across to Rahul. Firstly, to that one statement that Rajdeep made. Rahul, love your thoughts on that, since you've been following Indian cricket for the past few years. Tell us, had Virat reached the end of the road as far as his captaincy is concerned? As Rajdeep was saying, he's given all that he could, and probably it's now time to look for a new leader who can now take the Indian team on a new path.
Well, Nikhil, it's a little strange. A few months ago, Virat, when he quit his T20 captaincy, in that statement that he had issued, he has mentioned that I'm going to relinquish my T20 captaincy because I want to focus on my ODI and Test captaincy. Now, this is not too long ago, by the way. This is just about 4 odd months ago when he had stepped down as T20 captaincy. And suddenly 4 months later, and just a few, if I'm not wrong, just to be exact, 4 tests later, by the way, he has quit his Test captaincy as well. Well, I would understand one thing, what Rajdeep also said. Maybe he has preempted something. Obviously, things are not same, especially between him and Saurav Ganguly, when he says that he was never asked by anybody, not just Saurav Ganguly, but by anybody that do not quit your T20 captaincy. And BCCI had been, in fact, we've been speaking to people who were there in that meeting when Virat proposed that I'm going to step down as T20 captaincy. And they had said that, not just Saurav Ganguly, a lot of other people had also said that please don't step down as T20 skipper. Let this T20 World Cup, go by, and then you can announce. But then we were all waiting. Why is BCCI not making an official statement? Now comes Chetan Sharma, the chief selector, and he says, everybody, not just Saurav Ganguly, even he himself, a lot of other people had said that, please don't quit your T20 captaincy. And the manner in which he was removed as ODI captain. Although I don't find anything strange or wrong in that, because the ODI team was not announced. It was what was mentioned was that Rohit Sharma will be your ODI skipper going forward, and Virat, of course, is not. And the ODI team is announced a month later, almost a month later. It has Virat, to me, seems to be a heartbroken man. I can't use any other word, but he seems to be a heartbroken man. Not just what is happening with his form, that he's not been able to score 100 in the last 25, 26 months. Also, because what has happened around him outside the field. Rajdeep rightly mentioned, because we've heard that a few of the players have gone to the BCCI and have mentioned that how Virat is not accessible, and have made complaints against Virat. So that dressing room, unfortunately, was drifting away and away and away from Virat Kohli. And BCCI understood it, and they made a separate white ball captain and a Test captain. Now Virat may have preempted, because Saurav Ganguly.
So now let me just pin you on that. You're saying Virat Kohli may have preempted. Could you throw some light on that? What is it that he may have preempted? There were talks of a show cause notice because his word against the BCCI president word. What is it that he may have preempted? What is the worst case scenario you think that he was about to face?
Nikhil, you and I both know this. This is a fact that Saurav Ganguly did not like the fact that what Virat Kohli had mentioned on that day before the press conference. He was adamant. He wanted to show cause Virat Kohli, that how can he say all these things. Of course, there was no evidence. It was not recorded. That entire meeting was not recorded. But he wanted to show cause Virat Kohli, but he was, and rightly so, by other members of the BCCI, he was, Saurav Ganguly was stopped because there was an important series ahead. South Africa series was ahead. But I'm not saying that he may have preempted. I'm saying that these things may happen. These things may happen. And Virat, being a heartbroken man at this moment, I think he decided that, enough is enough. With a lot of people now not part of that dressing room. I remember reading a statement or a post from Virat Kohli that he was missing some of his former colleagues, in Ravi Shastri, in other people when on these tours. And, yesterday we were talking about Cheteshwar Pujara, Ajinkya Rahane. Now we'll have a different captain, Rohit Sharma or KL Rahul next. But actually, the Indian Test team or the Indian cricket now completely is going to have a transition from here on.
Rajdeep, now see, that's the issue. And you're talking about, you made a fair comment, and that's an assessment that you're giving, while watching Indian cricket from the outside, saying that he may have reached that, end of that road as far as what he could contribute to the Indian team as a leader. And maybe there was a dip in his form as well. But now that we've established here that probably the reasons that may have led to Virat Kohli having given up his test captaincy is because he was preempting some sort of action that may have been taken against him, or some sort of problem that might come across once this series is over, once he gets back. Are these then the ideal circumstances? Now, if Virat himself had acknowledged this, or had believed that, yes, I've given all I could as a test leader and I'm deciding to give up captaincy, something that, MS Dhoni did in Australia, that would be understandable. That is something that most fans would be able to digest. Listening to Virat yesterday at the press conference didn't seem like he had decided at that moment that this is it, I'm done with test cricket, or as a leader of the team. Clearly, he's given it some thought. Clearly, he's preempted something, as Rahul was pointing out. And in that sense, then he's been forced to give up captaincy, and not so much that, oh, I've given everything that I could, and now it's best that some other leader takes over.
I would like to give Virat the benefit of the doubt here. I think a player sometimes comes to terms with the fact that maybe the pressure is finally getting to him, and that as a result, he is not taking the team forward. When I look at Virat's statement, that's exactly what he's trying to say. That, he wants to be honest with his team. And I really would like to believe that. Rahul is right. Given what happened with the ODI captaincy, somewhere at the back of the mind, it must have been gnawing at his mind that will the BCCI now do to me with red ball captaincy what they did with white ball captaincy? But I think at the end of the day, when you're a player of the stature of Virat Kohli, I think you deserve the right to call time when you think it is appropriate. And I know that's not easy, but I think Virat has done it in this instance, I believe, in a dignified manner, because you've come to the end of a cycle. We keep mentioning Ajinkya Rahane, Chiteshwar Pujara have perhaps played their last test match for India. I know that's again a big call to make, but I think so. I think perhaps under a new coach like Rahul Dravid, possibly a new captain, whether Rohit Sharma or KL Rahul, a new vice captain, you're looking at a new look Indian team as a new test cycle begins. Now, Virat Kohli could have dug his heels in and hoped that he would not be removed as red ball captain as he was white ball, but he was taking a chance, and I don't think he wanted that to be his abiding legacy. I think South Africa was a burning obsession to win in South Africa and complete, in a way, the conquest of these Sena countries. It hasn't happened. Remember, there's a test match against England still to be played in June, July to decide that series. He's giving that up. But I think he recognized, I would like to believe that Virat Kohli recognized which way the wind was blowing. Whether you then call it preempting or whether it came from inside saying, look, I've given enough. I've really, you could see him battling against himself, Nikhil, in that inning where he scored 28 in 143 or 153 balls. That's very rare for a Virat Kohli to do that. He was battling the demons, I think, within. He's been struggling with some of the, with where his offside plays, looking at his technique. And for the first 5 years, it was a smooth ride. From 2014 to 2019, Virat Kohli was on a consistent high, winning matches as captain and scoring runs. Since 2019, there's been a decline in his form. And I think a stage comes when a great player knows that I need to give up something to gain something more. I still believe, and this is what Virat told me, by the way, when I saw him at the Nets at CCI in November, I want to play 150 tests. That's still 51 tests more. That's another 5 years. Now, you can see Virat Kohli 5 years more as a test batsman. Why not? He's still as good as anyone, in the game. And I actually see Virat Kohli scoring a lot of runs from here onwards in the next 5 years. That's my belief. You'll see a new Virat Kohli without the burden of captaincy. Even though, unlike Tendulkar, we must reiterate, he relished and enjoyed captaincy.
All right. I mean, fair point there. And many Indian fans would be hoping what you're saying, that he continues to playing for 5 years. But Rahul just trying to gauge where the situation is. And Rajdeep makes a valid point where he says that, for some players, this may have been the end of the road. And he named the likes of Cheteshwar Pujara as well as Ajinkya Rahane. But now looking at the entire scenario where, even the captain has decided and we're talking about maybe a new direction that the team has to take, has hell really broken loose? I mean, what has happened with Indian Test cricket? They've just played. They're the #1 Test team in the world at the moment. They've just played the final of the World Test Championship. That means they're one of the 2 best teams on the planet. They've won 2 back-to-back series recently. Australia, something that nobody had done before. The only blemish that has happened is, and even if I can call that as a blemish, is that you've lost a Test series in South Africa. Even that no other Indian team had done before. So, it wasn't clearly a given that you were going to win a series here. So what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, has Indian cricket really reached that turmoil state where you start seeing a lot of people, giving up on Test captaincy? The captain also has to decide that, no, you need a fresh leader. Have we really reached that far, or is it really an overreaction?
Well, Nikhil, to be very honest, these 3 Test matches, of course, Virat led in 2 of them. And before that, if New Zealand were here for a 2 Test series, Virat once again led in 1 of them. So effectively, Virat has led in 3 Test matches. Before this, the last Test match or the last Test series that he led India in was in England, where India were leading 2-1. You would remember on the eve of that Test match, on the eve of the 5th Test match against England in Manchester, Virat was the one. Of course, there were other players also who said that we are not going to play the Test match tomorrow because of the COVID fears. Suddenly, there was a few cases that came in the Indian dressing room among the support staff also. I think whatever Virat has done this, of course, he must have informed the board today. Or maybe yesterday, whenever he would have informed them. I don't think BCCI would be too happy with this. BCCI may not be too happy with this, that Virat has stepped down as the captain of
No, that's his prerogative. As a skipper, that's his prerogative when to...
Absolutely.
When to continue.
BCCI would also, Nikhil, tend to feel that, he is doing something just to upset whatever is happening. That can actually affect the Indian cricket. I think that Australia tour in which Virat came back after the Adelaide Test, maybe after that, that is when we began to hear that players have started complaining against Virat. Or I'm not complaining in the sense, not that maybe his attitude towards the players. That is when the dressing room started drifting away from Virat. And he must have been too distracted, not just with the cricket. What should he think? He has a family now. He's a father. He has Indian cricket to look after. And then there are things outside cricket which have been happening. As journalists, we have been very busy covering all those incidents that are happening outside, off the field. Imagine what Virat must have been thinking. I think he's too distracted. He chose to give up his Test captaincy, and I don't think he has been he's somebody who has kept Test cricket at the top. As far as
Rahul,
all
just
formats are
to cut you short, but I really wanted to have a follow up there and give our viewers a sense, because we know how this news is now going to play out. Whether Virat has left his captaincy, no matter what his statement says, whether it's on his own accord or whether it is because he wants to concentrate on the batting or not. You and I both know that the next few days it's going to be BCCI versus Virat Kohli, similar to what played out before the start of the series. Who do you think is the public going to be with? Who's going to get the public sympathy, and who's the one who's going to be looked as a villain in this entire battle between Virat Kohli and BCCI? Because as most of our experts that we're speaking to, they're all saying that this is also that pent up anger that he has after he was removed from ODI captaincy. Now I'm guessing a lot of fans, and I know a lot of Virat Kohli fans on social media, would have loved to have seen him continue as captain, but now he's let go of it. So it's once again going to be BCCI versus Virat Kohli. What do you think is going to be the reaction of the public at large, because they are the biggest stakeholders in cricket?
Public sentiment will always be with the athlete, with the current athlete, be it a cricketer or any athlete, any sports person. That has always been the case. And if you are saying BCCI, I think it was always Sourav Ganguly versus Virat Kohli. And of course, both of them. And in this case also, now that Sourav Ganguly is an administrator, I think a lot of people would feel that Virat, if that is how it comes out, that Virat has been upset in the manner in which he has been told about a few things, or what has happened with him. as far as his captaincy is concerned. But in a matter of 4 to 5 months, Virat is not your T20 captain. Virat is not your ODI captain. Virat is not your Test captain, and also Nikhil, RCB captaincy. So Virat, and it also affects your market value also to a great extent. Who becomes your next Test captain? Would it be 34-year-old Rohit Sharma, or KL Rahul would be your Test captain? But series loss, a lot of people would read it as an after effect of the series loss against South Africa. But you and everybody amongst us would know that this has a lot to do with what has happened in the past 4 months off the field. That is Virat and BCCI.
Okay. We're trying to wrap our heads around, what may have prompted Virat Kohli to give up on his Test captaincy. As I said, the most successful Test captain that India has had, and the Indian Test team, even if you were to take a look at the last few months, have been on a high. They've been winning everything at home. They've won in Australia. They're leading in England, almost on the verge of winning a series there in England. And in all of this success, he suddenly decided to let go of Test captaincy. The one other thing that really comes to my mind, and Rajdeep, I'll come to you on this one, is that latest controversy that we saw during the last Test match that was played in Cape Town. I mean, apart from the fact that India lost the Test match, there was a lot said and written about how the Indian team conducted themselves because of that one wrong DRS call. After that, most former players, whether it was the media, public at large, had all criticized. While they said that Indian team may have been wrong because of that DRS call, yet the behavior of the Indian players left a lot to be desired. Now, these are, ambassadors of their country going there, and the way they behaved after that one wrong decision by the technology, and then Virat being the leader. I know a lot was said by multiple players, but because Virat is the leader, he's the one who has to take the responsibility. A lot of criticism coming there. Do you think that also played a role, where he may have thought that he may have been anyway deciding to let go of captaincy, and this was like the last straw? He said enough is enough.
Look, I'm going to say something again which may be contentious, Nikhil. I believe that on the behavior front, in the last few years, there are times when Virat has crossed the line. And that match against South Africa was one example. I was watching it live at that moment, and frankly, I was shocked. I don't think this is acceptable behavior for an Indian captain to, the manner in which publicly target DRS through a stump mic, and then the other players also get involved. It almost seemed as if the players were on the edge. They were under pressure. They were not enjoying the game. You got a sense that Virat had cracked. Now, I know that, as I said in the past, also he's crossed the line every now and then. But this time you were losing. You're not performing. You're under pressure, and you then, behave in this manner. It isn't the kind of legacy I think Virat Kohli needs to leave as India captain. I would like to remember Virat for the more positive things he's done for Indian cricket. This never say die spirit, take no prisoners, going abroad, winning in difficult conditions, performing, leading from the front in Australia, never easy. So playing with 5 batsmen, 5 bowlers, so much more attacking and aggressive, willing to take the odd gamble to win a match, even if it means risk losing it. Those are the things you'd like to remember Virat by, not the behavior that we saw in Cape Town in that last Test match. And I think that was the clear sign that something had to give. And I think what has eventually given is, I think when Virat went back to the hotel room, and it's possible he's been discussing this with his close confidants for a while now, that I think I've had enough as captain. I need to shake myself of this burden and just focus now on my batting and this last phase of my career. Look, Virat Kohli wants to go down in cricket history as arguably one of the greatest ever Indian batsmen. He already is one. But if you want to choose your all-time 11, I think these 5 years will make the difference. Virat has what? Correct me if I'm wrong, about 8,500 Test runs, close to 9,000. I think he wants to go to 12, 13, maybe even touch 100 centuries. He's got another 25 centuries to go. I think he's got about 75 international hundreds. So he needs about another 25. He needs to play, 6 years for that. He's remarkably fit. He can do it. But he can't do it with the burden of captaincy. It's the right decision taken at the right time. And I think perhaps that day in Cape Town was the turning point where he decided, I'm exhausted. I've just crossed the line now.
All right, Rajiv, just so that, just to let you know, just a week ago, ago, we happened to pick our all-time India's Test 11 on our digital platform, that's Sports Today. And Virat already made that cut. After a lot of debate, we were picking that team, and he's already made that cut. So he's already there and thereabouts. But I understand your point. As you're saying, he really wants to bat. And I know this for a fact, having spoken to a lot of
hundreds, Nikhil.
Yes, I know.
Nikhil,
I know
100 hundreds. The only other person who's done it is Tendulkar. If Virat Kohli gets 100 hundreds, that's how he wants to be remembered, as a great captain. And unlike Tendulkar, Nikhil, significantly, he's going to be remembered as a highly successful captain who also scored 100 hundreds.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know this for a fact, and that is what I was getting to. I know this for a fact, having known a lot of people close to him, that he is really eyeing that 100, and that is something that he really wants to get to. And that's one way of really, him pushing the boundaries. It's not so much like a competition with Sachin Tendulkar, but he really loves to push the boundaries and try and reach where no man has gone before. And I think that's the drive that really, takes Virat Kohli where it's taken him as a batsman. But on the subject of, that entire DRS controversy, Rahul, I'll come to you. And we spoke about it. I think Rajdeep hit the nail on the head. We were talking about how, we are a huge fan of his aggression. We love how, he's taught this Indian team to give it as good as they get. And despite all of that, even though we loved, let's say, teams of Australia in the past, we did happen to criticize whenever Ricky Ponting crossed the line, whenever Steve Waugh crossed the line. So if we could criticize that as Indian fans, even though we are fans of that Australian team, we must criticize the Indian team as well. We can love their aggression, but when they cross the line, you need to call a spade a spade. You have to be objective and really call that out. And that's exactly what we've been doing for the past few days. Do you think all of this now, sometime, in the heat of the moment, you do it, sometime you have time to reflect the criticism that is coming their way after this entire DRS controversy, that's also played a role in Virat saying, okay, that's that then as far as my Test captaincy is concerned?
Nikhil, I doubt if Virat has taken this decision in such a haste. What happened in Cape Town that particular day, obviously none of us for the past couple of days has supported what has happened there in Cape Town, because every time Virat does something like this on the ground, he believes in it. Because if he comes out in a press conference, he would still support it. You would remember when he had issues with Steve Smith during one of the home tests here in India, when Steve Smith had a brain fade. Apparently, he had a brain fade. Virat said that I don't have any friends in that Australian team, and definitely Steve Smith is not one of them. Yesterday or day before yesterday, so much happened during that test match on day 3. And Virat, virtually, Virat, Ashwin and KL Rahul, they accused the broadcaster of manipulating with the DRS. Now, a day later, he comes for the press conference, and if he believed in what he did that day, he would have still... when he was asked about that question, about that issue, he said this is just part and parcel of the game, and it happens on the field, and we should leave it there and there. So, yes, he seems to be a little exhausted, maybe a little distracted. Maybe he needs time to think. That's what I think. Going forward, Nikhil, you will see Virat playing less and less number of white ball matches. That's what I feel. The day he quit his T20 captaincy and the day he was removed as ODI captain, I thought in my mind that Virat would now pick and choose his battles, or rather his matches, where to play, which matches to play. And you would Test cricket, I think Test matches he would still play, but white ball cricket, you would see a lot of less number of matches that he's going to play from here on. Although you have a 2023 World Cup, I don't know, going by what has happened, I don't know when Virat would next announce that I'm giving up on T20 cricket or ODI cricket.
I think, that's a no-brainer. I think Test cricket is something that he's going to continue playing till so long as he's playing international cricket. May let go of white ball, but I think at the moment it seems like he might pick the white ball format depending on the year, whatever World Cup is happening. If it's a T20 World Cup, most likely you'll see him play T20 bilaterals, and if it's a 50-over World Cup in that calendar year, you most likely probably see him play 50 over. cricket in white ball. But just to pick on that point that Rahul you made about, this decision he wouldn't have taken in haste and probably had a thought process before coming to this conclusion. The only contradiction to that is when we saw him yesterday come and address the media after this loss, there were a lot of questions, if you remember, in the press conference that were directed as to what would the future of Indian Test cricket look like? What is he planning in terms of certain personnel, in terms of certain strategies? All those questions, I mean, he could have very well said that, this is not something that I can answer right now. He did mention that briefly, but he still had an answer to it, saying that, okay, we know some of these areas we have to work on. Batting is not clicking, we need to improve. Or certain players, yes, we cannot hide from the fact that a lot of players haven't been scoring. That needs to be addressed. So it did seem like that, he had an eye on the future as well. He had a roadmap for the future as well as what would happen in Test cricket. In that regard, it comes as a huge contrast then that within few hours he decides to give up on Test captaincy, and that's where it seems like there could be an external factor, which is why I asked that whether that DRS controversy played a role, whether there were other things as well. But clearly, do you think it happened in haste in that sense that 12 hours before he was thinking of the future, and then 12 hours later he says no more to do anything with Test captaincy?
Well, things are happening differently these days with Virat. Never before. Of course, in 2017 was the last when he missed out on a test match before the Joburg test because back spasms happened in that test match. And he said after the match that, I felt a little guilty that I was not playing. So a lot is happening, I think. But still, Nikhil, nobody wants to quit captaincy. Nobody. Be it Virat Kohli, be it Sachin Tendulkar, Mohammad Azharuddin, Saurav Ganguly, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, or anybody. Although Mahendra Singh Dhoni, we all know, had his own ways to make things happen. But Virat also. That is the reason why I'm saying maybe this decision was taken by a disappointed, a heartbroken or Virat Kohli or somebody, who thought that, I've served Indian cricket for so long and maybe I deserved something better. And the manner what things have transpired in the last few months, Virat seems to be, he would tend to feel, everybody, if you speak to people in the BCCI, they will have their own reasons. If you speak to some other players, they will give you another input. If you speak to Virat Kohli, he will have his own things that, whatever has happened has made me feel a little disappointed.
Okay. Rajdeep, you mentioned, and I'm just now trying to look forward. You mentioned that, this probably was the right time. He wasn't having a great time with the bat, and probably this will now allow him to really concentrate on his batting. How do you think that plays out with an international cricketer? If he lets go of that captaincy, how does that allow him to get better as a batsman? And in Virat's case, can we have the same logic considering he really enjoyed his Test captaincy or captaincy at any format?
It's a tough one, Nikhil. The jury is out on that. You look at Ricky Ponting, very successful Australia captain over a long period of time, eventually gave up, like with Virat when his batting started declining, became a batsman under Michael Clarke, but was never able to recapture the form of Ricky Ponting at his peak. You could argue that we've seen the peak of Virat Kohli as a batsman. I'd like to believe not, because Virat is very fit. And I think his fitness will take him to the next 4 or 5 years, and possibly his great desire and hunger to be recognized as possibly the greatest ever Indian batsman along with Sachin Tendulkar. So I'm positive about that. I just wanted to make one last point there, Nikhil, which is that the problem is the BCCI has no concept of a transition. Look at the ad hoc manner in which all of this is happening. We are now at a stage where we don't know who's going to take over from Virat very clearly. There's so much of talk of Rohit Sharma, but Rohit has been in and out in terms of his fitness. KL Rahul, I think it's still too early to put the burden on captaincy on him. So who's your captain? So the one thing that troubles me about the way in which all of this has been handled, there's been no concept of a transition, because there's been too much of confrontation between BCCI and Kohli and a lack of communication, as we saw with the ODI captaincy. And that's where the BCCI, I think, has got it wrong. This should have been a very smooth transition, considering that we've been such a successful test team. I'm not so sure how successful the transition will be for the team. For Virat himself, I just believe he has so much of self-belief that you will see Virat Kohli once again scoring big runs. That's That's maybe my hope, but I'd like to believe that Virat Kohli has this unique ability to prove his critics wrong.
But Rajdeep, just to follow up on that, you're absolutely right. It's not that it's going to be a bed of roses now that Virat has decided to give up captaincy. We don't have anyone in waiting, and this is something that BCCI doesn't look at. But just to play devil's advocate, maybe they were looking at grooming someone, and they thought that Virat might continue for a few more years, and this has come as a bolt from the blue, where Virat himself has decided to let go of that Test captaincy. For all you know, they thought maybe 3-4 years more he'll continue, and KL Rahul could be groomed on that front.
I'd like to believe that, except the events of the last few months have really made me believe that there is a section of the BCCI that wants Virat out. I think that Virat had become bigger than the game, almost, in the eyes of the BCCI. And as we started off, we said BCCI doesn't want any cricketer to be bigger than the game. They didn't want Sunil Gavaskar, even the great Kapil Dev. 1 year after 1983 winning the World Cup, Kapil Dev was removed as captain. This culture of the BCCI, that no one is bigger than us, is part of the problem why they've been unable to achieve a successful transition. Let them now not blame Virat Kohli. Virat, as I said, and I keep reiterating, has the right, I believe, because of his stature, to decide when it's time to call quits. Yes, he and BCCI should have had a discussion on this. There I agree with you. But who is going to open the discussion? Who is there to actually have a dialogue on these contentious issues? And that's the problem in Indian cricket, the lack of structures that do not, as a result of which transitions are never smooth in Indian cricket. And I fear that even this transition will not be entirely smooth, although whoever is the new captain has a very easy series to start with, Sri Lanka at home. So that might give them some time to settle in.
All right, Rajdeep Sardesai and Rahul Rawat, stay on with us as we continue talking about this big breaking story at the moment. Virat Kohli, after he had given up on his T20 captaincy a few months ago, and then ODI captaincy was also given to Rohit Sharma on his own accord, has now decided to let go of the Indian Test captaincy as well. That after India failed to fulfill their dream of winning their first ever series in South Africa. So a day after they lost that Cape Town Test match and the series 2-1, Virat has decided to do that. We'll continue tracking this story, but more after this short little break.